So yeah, you can call me Ram. And first of all, thanks for having me here on a Saturday evening. I mean, you have a lot of other better things to do. So I think I'll try to make it count. I think you're spending about half an hour. I guess my time is about half an hour, right? Yeah. So Subhajit called me about sometime last week, or not called me. He sent me an email saying that boss, you have to speak about something to this audience. So then I said, on what topic? Then he says that whatever topic you like. So then I got a little, surprised. So it's like saying that in our families, you take kids along, and when the kid is about 3 or 4 year old, you ask him, you take him along and say, well, say something. So in front of everybody, you go to a relative's place, and then he just started going to school, say something. Then he is completely confused what to say. So that is exactly the situation I'm in right now. So, but since I'm a little older than 4 years, so I thought, let me put up something, and then if you think that whatever I am talking about is you already know, or maybe it's not worth spending about half an hour listening to this on a nice Saturday evening, and there are other options here, forum and all that I could have better spent there, then you can interrupt me, and then I can change the topic, or I can just stop and I can figure out my way to forum. So it's up to you. So I'm not sure if you know the topic. Was the topic shared to you, or the topic? Okay, which is good. So in his instructions to me, he said that choose the topic, name, title, and you can be as creative as possible. So then I applied all my creative skills, and I said solving problems, solving the thinking problem with problem thinking is the title of my talk. So this is what I'm going to talk about. It's a creative title, I think, and what I'm going to talk about is how do you define products. I'm pretty straightforward. I think you're all here to, product marketing and product management mix. So you're already performing the role of a product manager, or you're wanting to perform the role of a product manager? You want mostly wanting to perform, right? Okay, so then perhaps I think it's useful, but let's see. So the topic is about product definition. Okay. So I'm going to talk about product definition based on our own experiences, what we do almost on a daily basis, at least twice a day. So before going to work, I think all of us are working, right? By the way, I'm like one of you, so it's okay. So I'm not a teacher or anything. So we all go to work. At the beginning, before you start from home, you check your Google Maps, and then say, what's the situation like? Mostly it will be worse than this actually, because I took these screenshots before I came here. So just to set the context, and then I check my WhatsApp. I think every apartment has a traffic WhatsApp group. Boss, this road is jammed. You go like this. This is my daily routine, right? So now, if you actually notice these streets, we can see that mostly the traffic is jammed, or it is showing red in the intersections, wherever either a 4-road intersection or multiple road intersections. So looking at this, I'm a product manager, right? Just walking you through the process. So I want to solve this problem. I want to solve this problem of traffic congestion at road intersections. This is the problem I want to solve. Now, I'll go through the process of defining this problem further and defining some features. Because we are product managers, one of the key success criteria for us is to utilize and leverage the existing technologies that we have. So, given that background, so I should say that I haven't spent a lot of time on making this deck. So I just prepared this about a couple of hours before I came here. Didn't get a chance to actually beautify this. So if you are rating me on the deck, don't rate me. So what is the problem that we're going to solve? there's a traffic congestion at road intersections leading to delays and potential loss of business. So why is it a business loss? Because all of us are working, whatever number of dollars or rupees we earn a month, about 20 days are the working days, and if you 20, roughly we, in the best case, we work for 10 hours a day, so 200 hours. So your salary divided by that amount of time, we are actually spending 20% of that on the travel part of it, right? So that is a business loss to the community as a whole. So that's the problem because of this problem of traffic piling up at road intersections, right? So what is the solution to it? So we have to somehow go to the other side quickly, right? That's a problem. But somehow jump. So how do you jump? You jump based through a flyover. So at the moment we have 24 flyovers in Bangalore, and we have to build 74 flyovers in the next 24 months. So roughly that is the goal, right? That is the goal you want to achieve. This is the problem. And then what are the key use cases? So just since I mentioned that we have to use, I'm not talking about civil engineering technology. I mean that is fairly evolved now. If you actually do a proper job, you can prefabricate a lot of material and then you just fix it there. So other technologies like the using other technologies like augmented realities and the artificial intelligence and the machine computer vision technology. I'm sure you're familiar with all these names, right? IoT and all that. So what are the key objectives? If I'm the product manager for a flyover, because that is what I'm building, right? I'm building a flyover to make people jump over the signal so that they're not delayed and hence there's no loss of business. That's a problem. So as you can see here, there are a lot of cool features that we can build on the flyover. So I prepare a list of use cases, right? This is what the flyover needs to do. It should automatically calculate the volume, velocity, and times at which a lot of vehicles are coming, what kind of vehicles, somebody's changing lanes, because it's a smart flyover. I mean, this is a hypothetical situation, okay? This is I'm taking this example because if I talk about my product, you may not be able to relate to it. So I'm talking about some generic case, okay? So like you said, the flyer should instantly, identify any volume variations and then inform the rest of the traffic police so that they can take necessary corrective and actions and so on. So are you familiar with epics? I have epics and the user stories and all that, right? So broadly, this is how we'll break this down. These are the use cases. To cater to these use cases, you will have to have at a broad level, okay, what is that you're going to achieve? You have to calculate the volume and velocity of the vehicles. You have to have some kind of an alerting mechanism, right? And then if you have to change lanes. So, this is a representative list. We can go on with this, right? So, what kind of reporting we are looking at? What is the volume at various points in time on the flyover and so on, right? You are all with me so far. Any questions? Do you think of any other features that we should add?
The only way we can solve the problem because there are other ways also, like reducing the traffic by introducing more.
Okay. So I just forgot to mention the assumptions. The assumptions are nothing is going to change. People are going to buy cars, more than one car. Public transport system or the metro is going to take its own sweet time. These are the assumptions. I'm assuming that the rest of the things are remaining as they are. Now, yes, if there is metro, even if there is metro, it is not going to cover all the places and not feasible to construct a metro so given that situation, this is what it is. There are constraints. We are operating under constraints. I forgot to mention the constraints. Any other feedback on this? Okay.
We don't implement them in parallel, but synchronized system already there in place.
Right.
Bangalore doesn't apply because people don't apply.
Right.
With the synchronization, the traffic moves in a very systematic way from one signal to the other. That can be one immediate solution that we can apply for the system that is ready already.
Right. Yes, if it is ready, then we can apply. Yes.
One solution to this problem is just this part of the other things. Like, let's say the traffic problem is there. The problem could be there are potholes. So that is called traffic. So there are, let's say, group of solutions that probably will solve not this one solution.
Okay. Yeah, a group of solutions, and there are some ready-made solutions, right? And then there are some constraints. Okay. Anything else? Okay. So in the interest of time, because I have only half an hour, so let's move on. So before we move on, have you heard the term Maya? Maya in Hindi, Sanskrit, Maya. Maya. You heard the term Maya? What is that? Illusion. Delusion also, right? So what do you mean by Maya? I mean, do you have any sense or what?
Perception is different from the reality.
Perception is different from the reality. Exactly. Yeah. So, very nicely said. So, but human beings, like humankind, is by default in an illusion or in a delusion. Basically, we see something. We see something, but it is not what we see. So that is what is illusion, right? Huh? No. So as per this philosophy, as per Indian philosophy, both Buddhist, Hindu, and perhaps Jainism as well. I'm not talking about Indian philosophy. As per Indian philosophy, there is this concept called Maya, or delusion, where you see things which are not to be seen, or there is something more to it. So this is the classic problem. I'm just drawing an analogy. So this is the delusion that we should be careful of. Whatever we just did, whatever we just talked about, is not the way we should defend products. So this is the delusion. This is a famous snake and rope analogy in philosophy. You actually see a rope, and you think that it is a snake, and you start having your own fears and so on. And this is the definition, like, which is close to whatever you said. So what is the delusion here? So this is a classic case of delusion of existing practicing product managers as well as wannabe product managers. We should avoid the trap of thinking about features. We should avoid the trap of feature thinking. We should think about problems. A product is about a problem definition and not a solution definition. Solution can be anything, actually. So a lot of times, perhaps in your experiences, in my experiences as well, a lot of times what happens is when we talk about any problem, suddenly somebody will say, boss, ये blockchain use कर सकता है क्या इधर? So क्यों use कर रहा है blockchain? So sorry if you don't understand Hindi. So why should you use a blockchain? Basically, somebody will come up. Why? Because they have heard this term called blockchain somewhere, and it happens all the time. So blockchain is one example. And this is, we have to be cautious of this. We should not fall into this trap. And by human nature, we generally tend to fall into the trap of Maya or delusion. So and hence we generally take to solution discussion quickly. We don't step back and say, oh boss, what is the problem? So what is the problem you're trying to solve? So it is, as recently as last month, we were implementing our product in Wipro Consumer Care, which makes all the Santoors and Chandrikas and other perfumes and so on. So I'm talking with a consulting team, consultants, which are advising Wipro Consumer Care on on their processes and how to improve the turnaround time and so on. So one of the things is one of the things that came up is they want to automate the whole ordering process end to end, from right from the distributor to the retailer, from the factory, warehouse, and so on. So when we are talking, so with the consultant and their business team, that is the supply chain, head of e-commerce channels, and so on. It is one of the topics. So why can't we have to get the distributors inventory visibility? So why can't we implement a blockchain? Somebody randomly said. So that is a problem. We should avoid the trap. So I just want to emphasize this because this is I understand that this is a course for both marketing and product marketing as well. So this thinking about the problem actually helps in defining the value proposition and the marketing messages much better because nobody is looking at features. So I can take you through a couple of examples of how we tend to think, and when we have to communicate the proposition of the product, we communicate in terms of features and not in value. Okay, so now given that we understood that, at least I am assuming for the moment, let's say we understood that there is something called delusion and we should avoid the delusion, the trap of feature thinking. So how do we go about problem thinking? So this is, so like I said, in my title of my talk, it is solving the thinking problem with problem thinking. So this is a thinking problem, and we have to think about problems. So this is just English, so don't, I mean, again, like I said, I didn't have a lot of time to beautify this deck. So how do you go about doing this? So first you need to define the goals. What do you want to achieve? That's where the whole, like some proverbs say, you spend 70% of the time sharpening the saw and then 30% only in cutting the tree. So that's some proverb. So we need to start there. So like I said at the beginning of this talk, I define the problem as the traffic congestion problem at the road intersections. That is a very, very narrow, crude way of defining a problem. That's the worst thing that product manager can do. So that should not be the way. So you start with goals. What is that you're going to achieve? And then you define who are all the stakeholders affected by this. So there are, if you take traffic, there is traffic police and there is school buses, office goers, cabs, tempo travelers. I mean, I'm talking about Bangalore. I'm similarly applicable for all other cities as well. Pedestrians, senior citizens. So many people are there on the road. So how do you solve it? And then the journeys they take. So oftentimes what happens is, you must have seen it yourself. I see it almost on a daily basis. You build a flyover just for the sake of building a flyover. So that's like adding one more feature to your product. It may or may not add any value. So you build a flyover just because you want to decongest the junction. But then the traffic above the flyover is less than the traffic under the flyover. So people are actually, so there are a lot of SEZs in Bangalore, if you notice, on the outer ring road. So there is only one lane to go to that office. The flyover has 3 lanes, but 80% of the traffic during the peak hours actually goes through the SEZs, RMZ, EcoSpace or Manyata or wherever. So what's the point in building a flyover there? I mean, there should be some other solution. So because we define the problem as the flyover, we have already, I mean, mixed up the solution with the problem and then started thinking about flyovers. And then a lot of times this happens that we're thinking about smart flyovers, right? So all this crap. So we say we're continuously building features. If we throw in some IoT also, IoT, and then so all this jargon what we hear, we should be very cautious of it. We should use all that provided we define the problem well. So And then once the user journey is, so somebody is taking a ride all the time, like I mentioned. So that is a user journey in the real sense. The same can be applied to a product, defining other product problems. And then after doing all this, then you define what is the as-is process. Today, so the user goals, they are not going to change, whether flyover or not. Everybody goes to office, everybody goes to school, and so on. How are they managing it today? And then you say, okay, if this is how it is today, and what is the goal that you have, or whatever may be the goal, what is the gap, and then you define the to be process, to be state. It may or may not include a flyover or something else. I don't know what is. At the moment, there is no solution. We are always thinking about the problem, right? And then this is something very recent. The jobs to be done. You need to identify. You can search the jobs to be done by the respective user personas that you identify here. So now you define the new process, and we'll have to figure out what are all the user personas. What do they do on a daily basis? He gets up in the morning. What does he do? He checks the phone, and so on. So you need to map the day in the life of a user persona, and then identify the jobs to be that he is doing. And then how are they performing their jobs? You have users, and they are performing some jobs, and they are performing the jobs using some tools and instruments. So what are these tools and instruments? Once we define all this, once we understand all this, then we define something called a domain model or a conceptual model of how things will work. So this is a mental map of how things will work. Till that time, we can't start defining a solution. We can't think about solution. So as a product, in your respective organizations, if you are taking up the role of a product manager, this is what you should do. So just to, yeah, I just mentioned. No, this is hypothetical. I just cooked up in the last 2 hours. Okay. So for example, reduce the time to reach. I live in somewhere in Balandur. From IPL Kormangala. Reduce the time from Kormangala to airport by 1 hour. That is a goal. Or reduce the traffic personnel manning traffic signals. Sometimes you have 3 or 4 traffic personnel manning one intersection, right? It's a huge waste of resources, right? So you keep that as a goal. The goal should be at that level. If you're talking about an enterprise, right, we should talk about that level. So for example, Wipro Consumer Care, which makes Santosh and others, their order replenishment cycle, if somebody is T plus 32 days, for example. Okay. So now what can be, suppose you are a product manager. You are going to say, I am the supply chain product manager. Or somebody else. Product management need not be exactly that one product. You go there and say, I quickly glance through some of the profiles, you are from consulting, I guess. So if you go there, what is that at that level, you will say from T plus whatever number of days, I want to reduce it to T plus 5. That is a goal. That is based on the business. How do you want to run the business? And likewise, so many things. So the goals are at that level. So then, whatever I just spoke, I just listed on here. So this is how you go about defining a problem. Okay. So then what do you do? So then after defining the problem, you abstract everything. So basically there are 4 things. So you have users or organizations. You have jobs which will convert or translate into transactions. You have some instruments and you have some rules. So this is how we should abstract the whole problem into these buckets, and then say, boss, this is the conceptual mental model of the problem and the proposed platform. This is how things will work. This is applicable for one organization, applicable for multiple organizations. there are multiple organizations in the network, and you are defining a platform that cuts across multiple organizations, the users and organizations broadly. And this is a picture that, I mean, it shows in one shot, but then what we get out of this is called a domain model. So at this point in time, I would like to step back a little and then briefly touch on the history of this whole thing. So there is a professor by name, I'm telling you all this because you are investing in yourself and becoming students again, which is very fortunate. I am not so fortunate. So you can read up on these professors and books. Theodore Levitt is a former professor of marketing in Harvard. He coined the term marketing myopia. Right, marketing myopia. So what that means is, he says, boss, as a business you need to figure out why are you existing. Right, that is if you don't define that, then you are doomed for, I mean, you're certain to fail. So are you in the business of, he takes a lot of examples, are you in the business of running railroads, or are you in the business of transportation? Are you in the business of making movies, or are you in the business of entertainment? So this is exactly same as what we were, you define the problem first. Are you in the business of building flyovers, or are you in the business of improving the traffic, or whatever goals that we have mentioned earlier? So that's where it started. And unless we get it right, he's actually marketing. And some of you, since you are marketing, so that is where it starts. Your marketing starts with the problem definition. Okay, so I was working with a company called Thomson Reuters, which is into, it used to call itself as a market data provider, right? So somebody asked, so I was working with market data, it provides data for lots of businesses. I was working with investment banking group. So all my users and clients are investment banking analysts and M&A professionals and so on. They're hardcore investment bankers. So they live and breathe data every day because they have to make decisions based on data, and my platform used to provide the data. So I used to consider myself as a data provider, right? So once I went to Edelweiss Securities in Bombay, I think some of you must have heard about it. So I was sitting with an analyst and say we have launched a beautiful platform which we thought was a great platform called Thomson Reuters Deal Analytics, nice UI, fantastic usability and so on. So we were very gung-ho, the whole organization. So sitting with him and then talking about explaining the product and all that, and he had a problem. He was patiently listening to me, and then he lost, after some time he lost it and said, boss, thank you very much. It's a great product, I agree, but I can't find what I need. I need an answer to this problem. I want to find this data. I can't. So if I reposition my thinking as, I'm not a market data provider. I am a provider of answers. You have a question, I can answer easily. You don't have to break your head, log into multiple systems, calculate, and then figure out, spend 20 hours. Because investment banking normally is very, very stressful. I mean, you need to churn out things very fast, very accurately. So that's the problem. So are you in the business of selling market data, or are you in the business of selling answers to questions? So likewise, so my job, manage a business operations platform on which all enterprise business operations run, like accounts payables and so on. Are you in the business of 6 years ago, I used to think myself like this. I'm the product manager for workflow platform. Are you the product manager for workflow platforms, or are you in the business of making the operations intelligent? If I constrain myself like a workflow platform, I'm talking about features. I'm not talking about the problem. I should think myself as a boss, I am the product manager for running intelligent operations. The intelligent operations can be done through a platform or somebody, I don't know, put a lot of intelligent bots, intelligent people. So I'm not constrained. That is a feature. Workflow system is a feature. So yeah, I think this is the end of it, my talk. But as a general, I think half an hour is done. Okay. I didn't keep track of my time. So as you take up this role of a product manager, you will be asked to do product roadmaps. You will be asked to present to senior management of what is your product all about. from my personal experience, I don't know if it's applicable to you. Whatever it is worth, please take this. You should always talk about problems to them. When you are talking to anybody in the organization, you should talk about problems. If you are interfacing with engineers, you should talk about problems, because solution they'll figure out, and we are not the best guys to talk about solutions. Okay, so and then road mapping. So I have a couple of examples of typically when we do a roadmap, 2-year roadmap, 1-year roadmap, 6 months. Your CEO asks for it, or head of product, wherever. Somebody asks, tell me what are you going to do? So you should not talk about features. Should, but not start with features. You start with what are you achieving in the next 6 months? What is the goal? What is the problem that you're going to solve? Okay, so to solve this problem, so okay, what is that problem? So I mean, again, it comes on top of my mind. Recall is Make My Trip. So if you see the journey of Make My Trip, it started with flights, and it added cabs, it added hotels, it added, now it is railways, buses, even taxis also, right? So that's how you should say. After 6 months, I want to onboard, I want to cater to the taxi market, right? Cab booking market, or I want to cater to the student hotel or room hiring, or backpackers, for example. That's a category, right? I want to cater to backpackers only. How do you? Maybe it's a different. The whole user journey is different. User persona is different. You're talking about a problem, and then you identify what are the problems today. There's no for backpackers. There's nothing. They might want to share rooms or whatever. They travel on public transport and so on. Their needs are completely different. You talk about that, and then talk about the features that you have to build. So that is what is the summary of my talk. I don't know if it is helpful, because if you already know about it, I'm extremely sorry that I wasted your time. But if it is something that you appreciate, then thank you very much. I'm on LinkedIn. You can ask me any questions anytime. So thank you.
This is similar to problem framing.
I don't know what is problem. As per the English term, it is for problem framing only. Yeah, it's problem definition primarily. Yeah. So there's a lot of examples that I can talk about by mapping the user journeys. For example, we launched a product for an Uber for agricultural machinery. I heard. Did you hear Tringo by Mahindra Tringo? You can in West Karnataka, for example, you can order a harvester or whatever is the machine on an app. So it goes. It's like Uber. It goes. There are machine owners, tractors, and so on. They'll say, oh, they get a request and then service the request. So we work with Escorts company. So we have a platform called Delta, and from there we have implemented in rice growing regions of India, Orissa, Bengal, AP, and so on. So what you do is we launched the platform, fantastic mobile based, blah blah blah, and all that. We threw in something called distributor ledger also, so that you can see transactions between escorts to farmer to the agent in between and so on. So we want to go live. So we went to the farm. So there is an machine operator. I don't know if you have seen machine operators. You see JCB operators. So we are saying that he needs to log in and say, boss, I started the service, like Uber, like Ola. And then he says, it's all fine, but he saw the mobile and said, thank you. How long will the battery last? I said, whatever time you, okay, but then I normally stay on the road. He lives on the field. Okay. How will he charge how will he monitor? Because you see, if the Uber guy doesn't charge the full line, you can't do anything about it. So that is a significant break in the flow. And that is, he is the crux, he is the guy who is actually harvesting, plowing, cutting, and all that. Okay. And the other thing is, he's always working in the field, in the machines and all that. His hands are all dirty. Right? How will you operate the mobile? So I'm saying, as you get into this role of product management, you need to completely problem focus, user focus. So thank you.